Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 640 for the 17th of January 2021. Richard Saunders coming to you from Sydney, Australia, where the weather is fine and dark because it's not sunny yet. It will be sunny because it's pre-dawn, a good time to record. Coming up on this week's show, our guest reader, Lara Benham, reads the report, the release from the Good Thinking Society in the UK, about the Professional Standards Authority suspending the Society of Homeopaths. Homeopaths are in hot water, and they're all washed up. Coming up to start off this week's episode of the Skeptic Zone. And coming up after that, it's Logical Fallacies with Michelle Biggersma once again. And let me see, what is Michelle looking at this week? She's looking at, I saw a really interesting thing the other day where it's a red herring. Don't be distracted. Michelle Biggersma will be telling us about red herring. After that, find out what Maynard and I get up to when we're not doing the Skeptic Zone podcast. We're moonlighting. Oh, the secret is coming out that we're moonlighting as astrologers. Believe it or not, we have a dial-up astrology service. And just a few days ago, our good friend Annika Harrison from the ESP podcast gave us a call. Somehow, I don't think our business model is going to last. Then we have the latest news and bits of information from the Australian Skeptics, written by Tim Mendham. And then to wrap up the show, our continuing series of Into the Unknown from 1950 from the Trove Archives. This week, our fearless panel of investigators interrogate, nicely, a so-called medium by the name of Mr. Dell. Stay tuned. Well, don't turn off at the end of the show for more announcements from me, more information, more things I think you might be interested in hearing, including an upcoming event in Canberra. But now it's time for me to run downstairs and try something I saw in the supermarket the other day. Thai chicken with chili and lime soup. Doesn't that sound good? In fact, here's the packet right here. How about that? Thai chicken with chili and lime soup. I wonder how many other people have tried this. Well, I do that. I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
This is Lara Benham from Australian Skeptics New South Wales Committee. Within the last week, our friends at the Good Thinking Society in the UK issued a press release about the ongoing challenge in confronting and bringing to account the so-called alternative medicine modality of homeopathy. This news comes to us from the Society's website at goodthinkingsociety.org, published on the 11th of January by Michael Marshall. Professional Standards Authority suspends the Society of Homeopaths. Earlier today, the Professional Standards Authority, PSA, announced it had suspended the accreditation of the Society of Homeopaths, SOH. The PSA, the government watchdog who regulate healthcare regulators and registers, found that the SOH, quote, did not appear to have prioritised public protection over professional interests in its handling of complaints or governance processes, which undermined confidence in its ability to ensure its registrants were compliant with its own code of ethics and position statements. According to the PSA, the SOH's failings in this regard, quote, led to risks to the public from homeopathy being offered as an alternative for serious conditions such as depression, arthritis, and autoimmune conditions that require medical supervision. Since 2019, Good Thinking has made the case that PSA accreditation of the SOH is inappropriate and that it undermined the credibility of the government authority to offer a kite mark to practitioners of an ineffective form of alternative medicine. In 2019, we brought a legal challenge to the Society's accreditation after SOH members promoted anti-vaccine misinformation and claimed to cure autism via cease therapy. Our legal case was withdrawn after the PSA imposed strict conditions upon the SOH in early 2020. However, in April 2020, in the early weeks of the pandemic, we highlighted in an exposé in The Times how registrants of the Society of Homeopaths were selling homeopathic remedies aimed at treating COVID-19. A few months later, in July, we revealed that the SOH had appointed as Professional Standards and Safeguarding Lead Sue Pilkington, a homeopath who had repeatedly shared anti-vaccine misinformation. This appointment was made despite the conditions imposed upon the SOH for their failure to tackle anti-vaccine propaganda among their membership. Appointing an anti-vaxxer to a position of overseeing professional standards prompted an emergency review by the PSA, leading to Ms. Pilkington's immediate dismissal. The review resulted in conditions being placed upon the SOH's accreditation, including that they adequately vet appointees and prioritise public safety. Their failure to meet that condition has led to their suspension. Michael Marshall, Project Director of Good Thinking, said, quote, "We are pleased to see that the PSA have suspended the Society of Homeopaths. The Society has shown consistently over a number of years that they are either unwilling or unable to prevent their members from making dangerously misleading claims regarding autism and vaccination, even going so far as to appoint an anti-vaxxer to a position of authority. This shows a serious failure to prioritise the safety of the public, as the PSA rightly concluded in their adjudication. Quote, "We hope this case goes on to set a precedent and that the PSA scrutinises other accredited registers whose members promote therapies that are not supported by evidence. As we've argued for many years, the public understandably interpret PSA accreditation as a sign of credibility. Where that credibility is being lent to practices that do not work and in some cases are actively harmful, it erodes public confidence in the PSA as a whole and potentially puts the health and well-being of vulnerable members of the public at risk." And that was Professional Standards Authority Suspends the Society of Homeopaths. And you can read that at goodthinkingsociety.org or just follow the link in this week's show notes. I'm Lara Benham. Thanks for listening.
Hi, this is Rob Palmer. I write the well-known Skeptic column in Skeptical Inquirer Online, and I'm a team member of the Guerrilla Skeptics on Wikipedia project, GSOW. But you fine folks may know me because I contributed segments for several episodes of this podcast. Check out my interviews from PsyCon 2019, starting with episode 576. So here's a little known fact. All of my skeptical activism stems from discovering the Skeptic Zone. Yep, I first heard of the GSOW project right here back in 2012 due to Richard's selfless support of it and other skeptical activities around the world. I can honestly say I'd likely still be a skeptical couch potato if I hadn't discovered this podcast. So besides giving back to the Zone by contributing occasional segments, I contribute to the success of the show with ongoing monthly micropayments, and I'm asking you to consider doing the same. You can do that by following the Patreon or PayPal links at skepticzone.tv. Every donation supports the show, and Richard will really appreciate it.
Logical fallacies. What are logical fallacies, and why is it important that critical thinkers should know about them? A logical fallacy is an error we can make in reasoning but it usually crops up when we are discussing or arguing our point of view. Some people might even knowingly use them to try and score cheap points in an argument due to intellectual laziness. They are traps we can fall into, but if we know what to look out for, we can spot them when they occur and stop ourselves from using them. This time, we'll look at red herring.
This is when someone gives you irrelevant information in an attempt to distract you from the topic at hand, often to avoid a question or shift the discussion in a new direction.
Red herrings are used to avoid talking about a subject, especially if you think you might lose an argument. They might seem to be related to the topic at hand, but can end up taking you far from where you wanted to be.
We skeptics tested a psychic who claimed to be able to talk to the dead. When it seemed apparent she could not do so, she complained that scientific testing was just another belief system and was not able to test what she does. The test was stopped, and the rest of the time was spent trying to explain to her how the scientific method works.
This is an example of something that is well known to skeptical investigators. When someone claiming psychic powers seems to be failing in a test, they may well stop and go off on a tangent. In this case, the red herring was to engage the skeptics in a talk about how science works.
So, you think homeopathy doesn't work? What about all the Western medicine that is recalled every year?
Whatever the case is with science-based medicine, often called Western medicine by alternative medical proponents, it really has no bearing on the validity of homeopathy. But before you know it, you are talking about other things rather than homeopathy.
The astrologer said he could predict the outcome of the next election. When that didn't come to pass, he explained how hard he'd been working on a new form of astrology that took more stars into consideration.
Maybe this new astrology is very interesting and something to talk about. But whether that is the new astrology itself or the hard work put into it, neither has anything to do with the past failure to predict the election. Chasing a red herring means you have been taken away from the point in hand. Before you know it, the original topic has been lost and you might not be able to return to it. Knowing a logical fallacy when you hear one, and even knowing its name, is important when arguing your point of view. However, you may come across as arrogant and not get very far if you call it out by name to your opponent when you hear it being used. If your opponent calls you out for using one, it's time to stop and think about how you are making your case. Use your knowledge of logical fallacies wisely, and remember that even if your point of view is right and you know all the pitfalls in arguing your case, it doesn't always mean you'll win on the day. And as skeptics, we must also remember that we too can be wrong at times. I'm Michelle Bickersma from the Vic Skeptics. Thanks for listening.
Skeptics Cafe, online from Victoria, Australia. No matter where you are in the world, join us on Monday the 18th of January 2021 for a live talk online. Is pain gendered? With Gabrielle Jackson. What is chronic pain and who gets it? Why do we know so little about the mechanisms of chronic pain? Could it be because women make up the bulk of chronic pain patients and most of our pain medicine has been tested on men? This presentation will explore the vexed issue of chronic pain and medicine's problem with understanding and listening to women. We also consider how medicine's lack of interest in female biology affects men. Gabrielle Jackson is the Associate Editor, News and Audio for Guardian Australia. She is the author of Pain and Prejudice and is the winner of the 2016 Medicine Wise Award for Excellence in Media Reporting. Join us via Zoom, 8 p.m. for a chat, then the talk begins at 8:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. That's 9 a.m. on the 18th UK time, 4 a.m. on the 18th East Coast USA, and 1 a.m. on the 18th West Coast USA. For more information and the Zoom link, just head to www.facebook.com/The Skeptics Cafe. See you there. Hello.
Hello.
Saunders Astrological Services. Richard Saunders here, psychic, intuitive and master of the 7 secrets of astrology and expert in the little-known art of individual planet interpretation, even dwarf planets. This month's special offer: each reading will be prepared on a typewriter used by Nostradamus himself and posted to you for the low price of just $19.65. Now, how may I help you?
My name is Annika, and I'm looking for some advice and guidance.
Yes, I thought so. My clairvoyant insights told me via the vibrations in the cosmic field. Now, before we start, our fees and charges are based on your star sign. I can already sense what your star sign is. You have the aspects of a Sagittarius. But may I ask you exactly when you were born?
Well, I'm actually a Taurus.
Yes, I knew that. The vibrations in the cosmic field told me. But you have the aspect of a Sagittarius, which is quite common for people born under the sign of Taurus.
Really? Wow. And I didn't even tell you anything about me.
Not everyone has the gift, you know. Now, about your reading.
Oh, it's not for me.
Yes, I sense that too. It's about a family member or someone you think of as family.
Yes, sort of. It's my cat, Henrietta.
Your cat?
Yes.
Called Henrietta?
Yes.
Okay then. Yes, well, I think we might be able to do something for you. Yeah, okay. I'm getting the feeling that your cat is a very old soul. Yes, wisdom. Now, when was your cat born? I'll need this to prepare her chart.
Next week.
Next week?
Yes, she's coming from a litter born sometime next week.
I see.
Can you tell me if Jupiter and Saturn almost touching in the sky will have any effect on her when she is born?
Jupiter and Saturn almost touching? What?
Yes, I saw it on the TV at the end of 2020.
Oh yes. Well, we need to take all sorts of things into consideration, you know. But since she will be born in the future, I might need to confer with my colleague for a moment about Henrietta. Please hold.
Okay.
Hey, Maynard, we've got a live one here.
Why is that?
She wants a reading for a cat that hasn't even been born yet.
That's a new one. Still, better than the goldfish reading I had to give yesterday. I mean, you tried talking goldfish.
A goldfish? What did you say?
I said it was a Pisces with aspects of Aquarius. Get it?
I see. Anyway, she told me that Jupiter and Saturn were almost touching. That doesn't sound right. I mean, they must be hundreds of kilometres apart. How can they touch?
I don't think that's right. I wonder, do you think she might know something about astronomy too?
Maybe. Anyway, what do I tell her?
Tell her that the vibrations in the cosmic field are telling you the cat will have some aspects of a Sagittarius.
Oh, I used that one on her already.
Oh, did she bite?
Hook, line and sinker.
Just like the goldfish. Okay, then let me talk to her. Oh, I love that music. Hello, this is Mystic Maynard. I work with Richard here at Saunders Astrological Services. Now, we've just been studying the chart and confirming our findings with our supercomputer.
Oh, wow. That is impressive. What did you find out? What will my cat be like?
Well, according to the alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, your cat will be prone to sleeping a lot, meowing just before dinner time, and she would like to chase things that move, string, small bits of string. It also says here she may well end up on your lap on winter evenings. And the supercomputer has also calculated that she does like to be scratched behind the ears.
That is just amazing. You seem to be describing my last cat who died 3 months ago.
You see, look, just looking at this report, this new cat will be the reincarnation of your last cat. That's right. Yes, the reincarnation of your last cat. Yes, the chart makes this incredibly clear.
Oh, wow. I cannot believe it.
Oh, it's all part of the service. I'll pass you back to Mr. Saunders. One moment. You're going to love the music.
Well?
Hook, line and sinker.
Okay, good. Let's see if we can upsell her. Hello again, Annika.
Hello.
Look, my spirit guides are giving me, via the vibrations in the cosmic field, that there could be some trouble ahead for your cat.
Oh, dear.
Yes. Have you thought about taking out paranormal insurance?
No? What is that?
It covers your future cat against unforeseen circumstances.
Unforeseen circumstances? But don't you know what the future holds?
Right. Well, it doesn't work that way. The stars offer us a look into a possible future. It's all the other possible futures that this insurance covers, you see. And who knows what they might bring.
Oh, no. Well, okay then. How much is it?
Well, together with the reading, I'll do a special price. Yes, $1,965 all up. Now, will that be check, credit card, or PayPal?
Well, I'm so impressed with your readings. It was like a real ESP experience. So, I'll buy it all, the reading and the insurance. I'm transmitting my payment to you now via vibrations in the cosmic field.
Via what?
Vibrations in the cosmic field. Did it arrive? I also sent my contact details via the vibrations. Thank you for everything. Goodbye.
Oh no, not again.
I told you, get their payment first. You keep this up and we're going to take away your astrological license.
You told me that aliens really exist. You met them and swooned with
Sziasztok!
Hallo!
Hejsan hejsan!
Did you know the European continent is home to almost 750 million people living in 50 different countries, belonging to an even greater number of ethnicities?
And believe it or not, only a handful of them list English as the first or at least one of the official languages.
And there's an amazing amount of skeptical activism going on out there that you are not aware of because it's not in English.
Yeah, because pseudoscience, quackery and fake news do not stop at borders. They get translated to other languages and transferred across the whole world.
So, if you're interested in weekly updates on what's going on in some of the countries here, providing you with all the interesting facts, news and even some skeptical history,
Or if you want to hear interviews in English with brilliant people you sometimes haven't even heard about,
then what you need is to subscribe to the ESP.
Extrasensory perception. You must be really wrong.
No, the ESP as in
The European Skeptics Podcast.
That's right. And if you're wondering how you can find us online, go to theesp.eu.
And you can also find us on Twitter at espodcast_EU, or you can like us on Facebook.
And if you want to subscribe, Do a quick search on all the intertubes for the European Skeptics podcast. You'll find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify and all the rest.
The European Skeptics Podcast.
The real ESP experience.
I don't know how you can believe.
It's 2021 and time for the first newsletter from the Australian Skeptics of the Year. This is newsletter number 114. And this is written and posted by Tim Mendham. Hello, Tim. Hi all, it says, welcome to what will hopefully be a better year. When did he write this? A short newsletter to kick off the season, but one that indicates that despite the holiday break, the silly stuff just keeps on coming, and in greater numbers than the true stuff. Read on. And remember, these items and articles are all links, so you can read more when you get the newsletter delivered to your inbox. Have lockdowns caused suicides during COVID-19? A good article that debunks some accepted wisdom. Schismatic proves, in inverted commas, 5G chip link to COVID-19 vaccines. Conspiracy theorists have shared a schematic for a 5G chip which they claim is evidence that such a device is to be inserted into a COVID-19 vaccine. Or at least it would be good evidence if new evidence had not shown it to be a reworked electronic circuit for an electric guitar foot pedal, the Boss Metal Zone. The pedal creates a guitar distortion and has been described by some as, quote, the worst distortion pedal ever, end quote. Predictable failures from the psychic predictors in 2020. It comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of the time-space continuum and an ugly reliance on the Gregorian calendar, where it is presumed that a line is drawn at 11:59 p.m. on December 31, and that the bin fire that was 2020 will be cast into the flames, leaving nothing but a void that can only be filled by psychics who are called upon to murder chickens, slaughter goats, or whatever it is they do to divine the future. Jack the Insider takes down the reader's goat's entrails and the very concept of a new year. There's no doubt that predictions for 2021 will have a similar success rate. And of course, listeners will know that I, together with a team of people from around the world, are working on a giant project at the moment. Well over 3,000 predictions we are analysing going back 20 years. Skeptic in the post-Evans, post-truth era. 2020 Skeptic of the Year, Mandy Lee Noble, on what skepticism means for diets, cures and Pete Evans. A recording of Mandy's Sydney Skeptics in the Pub presentation from December. And that was a very good talk indeed by our reporter Mandy Lee Noble, and that link leads you to the YouTube archiving of that talk. The December 2020 issue of The Skeptic, the journal from Australian Skeptics, is out. It includes a major feature on good scientists going off the track and an in-depth review of Judy Wileman's PhD and how she uses it to give her anti-vaccination views credibility. Plus the usual panoply of interesting, the weird, the worrisome, the fun, including a summary of Skepticon, and sadly we say goodbye to James the Amazing Randy. As a note here, if you haven't subscribed or resubscribed to The Skeptic, there's a link to do that. And events coming up include Perth, Adelaide, Victoria, the Gold Coast, and Canberra, and right here in Sydney. A further note, if you have any ideas or want to contribute to Skeptics communications, such as the magazine or Facebook page, or just have something you want to get off your chest, then you're welcome to get in touch. News leads should be sent to newstips@skeptics.com.au. Submissions for the magazine, etc. should go to editor@skeptics.com.au, and comments and suggestions, even rude ones it says, should also go to editor@skeptics.com.au. And under items of interest it says 7 paranormal temples and shrines of India, Australia's most haunted beaches. What? At least Australians might get to see these sooner than you can travel to see paranormal temples in India, but watch out for bloodied mourning mothers, apparitions of swimmers mauled by sharks, and floating body parts. Nothing like a dip in the Australian surf to bring out the ghoul in you. A haunted beach? A haunted beach in broad daylight? This is one of the things about ghost hunters and ghost investigations. They always take place in the dark and already what we might perceive as creepy or dangerous places, tapping into our ancient instincts. For me, the least scary place I'd ever been one day was a graveyard on the middle of a blazing hot day with the cicadas chirping. Ghosts were the furthest thing from my mind. Another item, can dogs see ghosts? It says this very short item says, not really. Well, there you go. And the silliest story of the year so far, it says, psychic sees future by throwing asparagus. I'd rather eat asparagus myself, but if you want to throw it to see the future, go ahead. Now, there's a lot more to read in the Australian Skeptics newsletter, number 114. Just visit www.skeptics.com.au and sign up for the newsletter. With thanks once again to Tim Mendham. Oh, Tim, you're going to have to come over to the Skeptic Zone studios before long and record some more of the Book of Tim. I tried to record it at his place one day, folks. You think the birds are bad here? Blimey! It's like he's living in a little cage within a giant bird cage, I think, in his part of Sydney. It just gets ridiculous.
Kyle from the Data Skeptic podcast. If you're curious about the way data is changing our world, topics like AI and all this craziness with Facebook and bots and the Twitter storm and how the algorithms that underline that work, and you don't want a technical deep dive, you want it in the vernacular in a way that people can understand, check us out at Data Skeptic. That's what we try and do. I interview advanced professionals in the field who do this sort of research, and then I get into interesting projects as well. We're a weekly show, and you can find us at dataskeptic.com.
Now it's time to continue our series, Into the Unknown. First published in 1950 in the Sun newspaper in Sydney, although it was probably, of course, published in the UK before that. But anyway, here in Australia, this comes to us now, part 3 in our series anyway, comes to us from September the 24th, 1950. And if you remember last week, we had the report of Mrs. Hughes going into a trance and being taken over by her spirit guide, White Feather. Into the Unknown, the Riddle of Spiritualism, a frank investigation by a panel of experts. And of course, as ever, this comes to us from Trove at trove.nla.gov.au, the online resource from the Australian Government and the National Library of Australia of digitised newspapers, periodicals, journals, and such like. How does mediumship develop? This is one of the questions the panel was asked to answer. At a session held on a late afternoon in the autumn, in a private room at the Marylebone Spiritualist Association, Mr. Robert Dell gave his account of how he developed his powers of mediumship. Despite the lateness of the session, it was warm and sunny when the séance started, and the windows of the room were thrown wide open. The sun shone into the séance room, which was still further brightened by two unshaded 100-watt bulbs directly under which the medium sat. Those who seek psychic manifestations only in the semi-darkness might have been surprised at the contrast between many dimly lit séance rooms and this sunny room, devoid of all furniture except chairs. Dell is a short, slight figure. He is bespectacled and was dressed in a brown suit, brown shoes, and yellow tie. As will be seen from the following account, Dell was a cook in the Royal Air Force and sprinkles his alleged psychic messages with an amusing brand of service slang. Thus he spoke of the beard seen on the spirit form as a Van Dyke, not one of those square Navy efforts. After Dell had been introduced to the panel, he was asked how he began his psychic work and gave the following explanation. It began when I was 3 years old, and I saw the spirit of my grandmother who passed before I was born. Mine was not a spiritualist family. In fact, my mother was the daughter of a vicar, and my dad was a Roman Catholic. Young as I was, I shan't forget the first occasion. I was sitting in the lounge on the mat, the first time in my life, but not the last. I have been on the carpet. I asked, "Who is the lady standing behind Daddy?" They said there was no lady standing, but I persisted. "She is his mother, and she has come to take him with her." 2 months later, my father died. 4 months after that, I asked who was the lady standing behind my mother. It was my mother's mother. She had come to take my mother with her. My mother died soon after that at the age of 40. Of course, I don't remember this, but my sister told me when I was older. I took my first spiritualist meeting when I was 14 years old, 14 and 3 weeks to be exact. I was the leading chorister, and I remember the great gold cross going up the aisle. I took the full meeting, address, prayers, and clairvoyance. I had a breakdown when I was 19 and went for a sea voyage with a relative who worked on a ship. During that time, I contacted people in America and Australia where I attended spiritualist meetings. Believe me, spiritualists are the same everywhere. The first meeting I took, I was in trance. At that age, I couldn't have stood in front of a lot of people. My composure is better now, but I am always ready to run away. Most mediums feel that way before a meeting. In answer to a meeting about whether health affected his power, Dell said, "When you are tired, it is not so clear, but when you are not in very good health, it is better. I was 100% healthy when I was in the Royal Air Force, and I took some shocking meetings. When I was ill with heart troubles during the war, I left the hospital I was at Cardiff and travelled to London to attend a séance. I really was ill. Percy Wilson met me and said, 'Have you come to describe or be described?' But I had one of the best meetings I'd ever taken." Robert Dell had already explained that his main work was in the sphere of clairaudience, and one of the panel inquired exactly what Dell could hear, how clearly, and in what manner compared with normal physical speech. He replied, "I hear the spirit voices on the side of the head, only always in the right ear. I feel as if that ear goes cold. But in fact, I've never had my temperature taken. It's a sort of numbness. The voices, well, that's rather like a faint telephone. That is why names like Bell and Dell can be confused, and perhaps why some psychics are accused of making mistakes. Yet it is really surprising what we get through, and not all in languages we can understand. When it is a foreign language, we have to listen very carefully, of course, and then repeat it, syllable by syllable. I heard German once. I don't know a word of German except Heil Hitler, but at a meeting in Paddington, I was able to pass the message on. And another time at the Victoria Hall, London, I gave a whole message in Spanish, of which I know not a word. There is a big difference between big and small meetings. The big meetings give stronger power. It's awful to try and take a meeting in a comparatively empty room. Usually you get clairvoyance or clairaudience, but very rarely both together. Not in 99 cases out of 100. We see and we don't hear, or we hear and we don't see. In mass meetings I get voices, and there is very little clairvoyance. Clairvoyance starts off with a light. The room here at this moment is not quite so clear as when I came in. I can only explain it as a kettle that is clear, invisible space, just between the grey steam and the spout all wavering. It's sometimes like that. I suppose this is the power, and is apparently what we draw on. We have a grand trade union, you know. At a meeting we can just say, the power is gone, and no chairman can tell us to carry on. All spirit people, no matter what they have been, come in light. We are often told we are contacting people from the dark regions. If that is so, then I am very glad, because my mother is one of them. I think it is all nonsense to say we contact only evil spirits. The strange thing is, no matter who they are, they all appear surrounded by light. When I get the impression of a spirit's light, it is at first the size of a 2-shilling piece, and in colour a bluish white. The light gradually grows in size and hovers about 6 inches away from the person sitting in the chair until it is just one column of light. At this instant, Dell said he could detect a light starting to glow above the head of a sitter on the far side of the room, and began to describe it. It is a man or a woman. It's too big to be a child. It's clearer at the top now, and I can see a woman. I can make out the face. The rest is still in white mist. This woman was of medium height, about 63 years of age when she passed. There is a faint resemblance to you, addressing the sitter directly, in the eyes. I have a very tired feeling coming over me. I don't care whether I die this minute. I feel so weary. The lady is fading now. I can't hold these people. Other mediums say they can, but I can't. There is still a misty light all over you. That lady is a relative. She passed out a considerable time ago and was on your mother's side of the family. I feel she was very weak, with a great tiredness in her legs. I hope the spirit people will forgive me for making a guinea pig of this case, but you did ask what the light was like. You know, to me, spiritualism is a religion, whatever scientific approach you may have to it. It is the essence of all religions. To me, it has made the orthodox teachings easier to understand. I can understand some of the miracles of Christ now. Clairaudience is something different. Whether it is a voice box that the spirit people speak onto, I don't know. The voices are always around the medium and not around the recipient of the message. I heard 2 names called immediately that spirit faded, Elizabeth and Annie. There is somebody here calling out the name Turnbull. Jane. Did anybody here know a Mrs. Jane Turnbull? Lady Muriel Anderson knew the name, and immediately she spoke to the medium and said her voice was right. Immediately the right voice answers, and there is a wave flow I can feel. It is a gentleman, a young man who passed during the war. I am not seeing a spirit form now, but I am relying on sensing. It's a type of psychometry, and I have a picture impressed on my brain. Dell appeared excited as a new spirit form came through and said, addressing the panel, "You know, at the beginning I was hoping that you would be nice and kind. Now I don't care two hoots whether you are kind or not. I'm getting a very strong impression now. This boy was aged 23, a flight sergeant in the Royal Air Force. I think later he got a commission. He's not a relation. He contacts or is associated with the family and is calling the name Jim. Now a lady has built up in front of you, about 40 years of age. She died either through or was connected with an operation, for I can smell the anesthetic. I think it's an aunt. I'm hearing aunt. Do you know Jane?" Lady Anderson said no. Also the name of Clark. She died as a result of a shock of some kind. There is a Masonic sign over your head. I know nothing about Freemasonry at all, but I think this is one of their symbols. Also, I am getting George. Not a love link, but a marriage link. Also, do you know a man who dropped dead when he was about 45, some time ago? Lady Anderson said yes, about 10 years ago. Standing behind you is a man who was a doctor while on Earth. I am getting no name. A light has come down to you in the region of your own heart. I feel it's rather a tired heart. The medium received the name of Corinne, which was recognized by Dr. Bendant, who said that if it is the name he had in mind, the man is very much alive. And that's where we'll leave that particular report for this week. Next week, we'll continue with the panel's investigation of Mr. Robert Dell and his alleged mediumship. And that comes to us from the Colour Magazine Sunday Sun Supplement, published on the 24th of September 1950. An interesting account so far of this man's claims into psychic powers. But once again, I think you can see as we go through this series, there's an awful lot of what we would now call stock standard cold reading going on. And of course, after 70 years and a report like this, it's hard to know exactly what happened or exactly who knew what about whom. We can only hazard a guess. Anyway, more about Mr. Dell next week, including the panel's report. And you can read that for yourself and much more at trove.nla.gov.au. Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, a tip-off from a listener has come my way. And it's really disappointing to see this one. Anyway, we all know that over the last year we've learnt the importance, or relearnt the importance, or it has been brought home to us, the importance of good hand hygiene, things like that when it comes to COVID-19. And I think a lot of us, including me, have learned a lot more about biology and virus and transmission and things like that. Well, not everybody has learnt a lot. We have a chiropractor, a chiropractic practice in the state of Queensland, in Maroochydore, in fact, in Queensland. And according to their website, the fact that our body has 51 trillion cells, well, that's great because it's only a one-cell virus that comes in, so, And they're suggesting that it seems a bit crazy that we trust medicine more than we trust our amazing body. Well, context here. Sometimes we have to trust medicine more than our amazing body because our amazing body hasn't got a hope. This chiropractic practice also says, enough of this nonsense about the big bad bug and all the worry about washing your hands. Apart from anything else, I think worldwide we've seen a no less than astounding and dramatic decrease in the common cold and the seasonal flu. And shock horror, it might have something to do with people washing their hands. Their final advice is keep up with your chiropractic adjustments. I'm going to link to this website, and you can see the video for yourself on this week's show notes. And you can view the Wave chiropractic site for yourself. And I think probably it's about time somebody complained about businesses like this. I think Wave Chiropractic should be waving goodbye. But on more positive news, we have an upcoming meeting at the Canberra Skeptics. Canberra Skeptics proudly present Overview of RAND's Truth, Decay Initiative. And this will be on Monday, the 15th of February at 6 p.m. The speaker is Dr. Carl Rhodes. And needless to say, of course, this is a virtual meeting, which means no matter where you are in the world, you can join in with the fun, just like you do with the Vic Skeptics Cafe. Our friends on the Gold Coast have regular online events, and right here in Sydney, Australia, with Sydney Skeptics in the Pub. Anyway, getting back to this talk, it says over the past 2 decades, national politics and civil discourse in the United States has been characterized by truth decay, defined as a set of 4 interrelated trends: an increasing disagreement about facts and analytical interpretations of facts and data, a blurring of the line between opinion and fact, and an increase in the relative volume and resulting influence of opinion and personal experience over fact, and lowered trust in formerly respected sources of factual information. Sounds like a really interesting talk, very thought-provoking, and you can find out more about that at www.canberraskeptics.org, or just, as we say, follow the link in this week's show notes. Before I go, thank you once again to those people who sign up with Patreon or PayPal at skepticzone.tv, who not only help keep the show going, you are the reason the show keeps going on a very practical level. Without your support and contributions, I couldn't muster the the wherewithal to keep the show going. So my gratitude indeed, and welcome to those new people just in the last week who've signed up. And it means an awful lot here at the Skeptic Zone studios. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. Welcome to the people who listen after the music to wait with bated breath for the dice game. This is where we roll a 10-sided die, or a 6, or sometimes a 30, or a 20, or who knows what, and normally 3 times, and you use your whatever power. Psychic, maybe? Maybe you've travelled into the future and you know what's happening. You've come back just to play this game. Anyway, I'm going to roll this D10, 10-sided die, 3 times, or maybe 4 if you're lucky. And it's up to you to see if you can guess what number's coming up. So here we go. I'm going to use the dice rolling machine and the device, whatever it is. First number, 8. 8. Maybe somebody is manipulating these dice by psychic means, who knows. Second number, 4. Last number, here we go. Oh, it's a Susan. For those of you who don't know, that means 5. There we go, a 5. So today's numbers are 8, 4, and 5 with the supplementary. The lucky last. Lucky? Here it comes. Another 4. 8, 4, 5, 4. Sounds like the start of some sort of strange telephone number.